Hey, welcome to the Worderella Writes podcast with me, Belinda Kroll. I write and illustrate cozy fantasy romance, and this is a little sneak behind the scenes. I am so glad you're here today. Hey friends, so this week we're going to talk about a couple of things. One, I'm going to do a quick blurb about my Patreon. We're also going to talk about historical, like how much history do you include in a book and when do you need to be worried about like legal things. And then I'll have a question for you guys at the end. So let's jump in. First, I wanted to say thank you to my patrons. You know, I have a very loyal group of patrons who have followed me across a couple different platforms, and I probably don't say thank you enough. I think it almost every day. It is very heartwarming to see, see their names and see the hearts and likes on my Patreon posts. I recently retooled the membership. So now almost everyone gets the same benefits. It's just how much you would like to contribute to sponsoring my creative works. $1 a month gets you access to all the blogs, the archive, everything. $5 a month unlocks the archive, but also you get a free copy of any ebook that I create and publish during your membership. The $10 tier then is you get the ebook, you get the archive, but you also get to pick whether you want a print book. And of those print books, is it the paperback or is it the hardcover? It just depends on which book. I'm still figuring out which edition is doing what, but or which book is getting which treatment. But so far, I think I've released all of the novels in ebook, audiobook, paperback, and illustrated hardcover. So yeah, I just want to simplify things and make it really easy to understand, like what are the benefits, and therefore by simplifying it, it's easier for you and for me. Anyway, thanks for that little aside. This we're talking about history and how and when we bring it into our cozy history fantasy books. I chose The Hesitant Mediums originally to be set in 1887 England because I was actually doing research about breach of promise law, because that's what you do when you're a computer engineer in undergrad and are just tired of looking at code, I guess. I don't question it. I just do it. So I was studying breach of promise and I wanted to write a story around that, but I was having a hard time making it funny. So, and I think a big part of it was because the reason why breach of promise existed in England, in the United Kingdom, was because if a man proposed to a woman and then reneged on the engagement, like decided he wanted to marry someone else or just not be engaged and married at all, that woman was she was out of luck. You know, she was kind of seen as used goods, whether or not she had engaged in any physical anything with her fiance. She was considered jilted. She was just like, for some reason she was found lacking, and that's why this man left her, right? But then because of that means that she doesn't get her dowry, she doesn't get an inheritance. Women could not own land, property. They didn't have rights to their children. So breach of promise was really the only way for a woman to get any sort of compensation for the fact that her fiance left her. This is also actually sort of funny little sad tidbit. The reason why we have wedding rings is because yes, there's a romantic reason behind a wedding ring. It's a promise. It's a circle that represents forever. La-di-da. It also is an expensive piece of jewelry that should something happen to a woman's husband and she doesn't have a job and she needs to pay for bills and stuff, she could sell her wedding band. She could sell her wedding ring, and that was like a guaranteed insurance against, it was almost like the life insurance against her husband back in the day, which is kind of wild if you think about it. But I don't know, I kind of went on a tangent there. But anyway, so when it comes to history, I was having trouble with breach of promise, and I wanted my heroines to be able to decide whether they wanted to get into a relationship, which then had me looking for when did women in England start to have the right to own their own property, or if they inherited something, did they got to keep whatever they inherited. It didn't go automatically to their husband upon marriage. And that law came into place around 1887. So that is when Hunting Miss Trentwood was set. Now 1887 also is a couple other big things. It's actually the 50th anniversary. I think it's the silver or the golden jubilee for Queen Victoria. She was crowned in 1837. I somehow managed to not write anything about the Jubilee. I don't know what my problem is. I did a ton of research about it. It just never made it into the books. So that's kind of the fun, weird, interesting thing. I'm writing cozy fantasy romance set in Victorian times. So I get to play with truth a lot. To pick up my books, you have to assume, or you have to suspend your disbelief and say, sure, go surreal. Why not? Sure, we are in a interracial environment and we don't question a whole lot about it because, hey, if we're willing to believe in ghosts, then we can believe that there is a sort of mixed culture in 1887 England. At least it is in my world. And a couple other things. So the things that I try not to play with are general etiquette, clothing. I had this little booklet, or this little book. It's a little hardcover. I believe Charles Dickens wrote it. But it's a map of England. And so from the 1880s. And so I don't mess with the streets. I don't mess with locations. I follow the map the way it is. I follow most social mores, most etiquette rules, most clothing rules. And then I play a little bit with hierarchy, but not a whole lot because I don't actually deal with the aristocracy. I'm mostly dealing with, the middle class, the middle social class. A lot of misters. The highest I've gone so far is a baron, I think, which just means they own land. It's not a baron and a knight, I think, is the most I've gotten, which those are not necessarily hereditary titles. So I know that they're kind of aristocracy. Anyway, there's a lot of hierarchy stuff that I only trouble myself so much because there are so many romance books out there about dukes and earls. And, in the real world, there were not that many dukes and earls. You can count probably on both your hands how many there were in real life. So if you want to chat fantasy, just go to any historical romance book aisle and it's yep, none of that could have happened. But so that's kind of the fun part, right? Is as you're looking at history and you're asking, well, what if? There also is a line you have to keep. So, I could say, what if Queen Victoria spoke to one of my characters? Ideally, I would put Queen Victoria in a place where she would have already been, historically speaking. So that way, my story is a little more plausible. Sure, maybe she did turn around and smile at one of my characters because they were standing in the crowd and blah, 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 right? The fascinating thing about writing about real people is you really want to stick to what is known historical fact. Or you want to make it so clearly obvious that you're doing satire or just completely making up a fantasy story. One of my favorite Doctor Who episodes is actually this is with the David Tennant, so the 10th Doctor. He's in, he stumbles upon this manor that Queen Victoria is trapped in, and throughout the story you kind of get these hints of well, wait a minute, there's a reason why Queen Victoria used the royal we, and their plot twist for that was so clever. Werewolves are involved, and aliens. It's delightful. But you know what I mean? So that is so clearly not reality that you could almost say that Queen Victoria in this instance is used as a purely fictional character. We are just using the physical description and the historical, importance of her existence in her reign as a character in the story. If I then wanted to say something that could be considered slanderous, libelous, this is actually part of the reason why I don't write contemporary stories, is because I just have no interest in writing about, I guess, modern politics. I'm living them, so I don't really need to write about them. I don't need to write about modern culture. I live in it. I want to escape, and I want to escape to this fictional world where I get to wear pretty dresses and hang out with ghosts and find a sweet man to love, right? So it's all very, I feel like I'm being kind of circular about this, but I guess the main point is when writing historical fiction, when writing historical romance, you do need to sort of pick a line on how factual are you going to be, and which facts are even important to the story. I could do a big info dump on here's what's happening in London while we're off in our little town of Compton Beecham, but it wasn't relevant to the story, So And I think that's the thing I love about writing these stories and why they feel cozy is because the scope of the setting is so small, it's intimate. And the vibes are all about, snuggling down and, feeling good as you're reading the story. So it's a blast. I know way more about the 1880s in England than I will likely ever use in my stories. And that's okay, because that's kind of my job as the author, is to pick the right details so that you as the reader can escape and feel like you have fallen into this other world. So that's kind of my reflection for this week. I did get to write another chapter of An Uncanny Bargain. I can tell I'm starting to get back into the story because as I was walking to lunch at work, I realized, oh no, like he can't be X-Way, spoilers, for 10 months because that doesn't explain why he is reacting to Y, spoilers. So we need to drop this down from 10 months to 3 months. So a lot of that like big picture stuff is starting to come together for me. I'm really starting to get a good vibe for the banter between Edith and Druvesh. I feel like I thought Edith was going to be a very organized, bookish person, but I'm realizing she is a bookish person of chaos. And so she's a little clumsy. She's a little disordered, but she loves to escape into her books, and she would love nothing more than to prove that she is an excellent medium. Druvesh, on the other hand, is a very orderly man. He has felt like he has to be the perfect version of himself in order to be accepted, in order to be tolerated, in order to be seen. So it kind of drives him nuts to see this person not caring or having the inability to care about perfection, because that was never expected of her. She was the second daughter. She was never going to be the one bringing in the rich husband or anything like that. So I feel like getting to learn more about them is really helping. And I just can't wait to get back into the manuscript, you guys. Some of the banter, I'm laughing out loud as I'm writing the story. In other news, let's see. I have launched the pre-launch for the Kickstarter campaign of An Uncanny Bargain. So if you would like to be part of that campaign, I am doing my publishing sort of backwards this time. So this time I'm going to release An Uncanny Bargain on Kickstarter. So everyone who's on Kickstarter will be the first editions of the ebook, the paperback, the hardcover. Then, as I'm fulfilling the Kickstarter rewards, I will open the products up on my store, Worderella.com. After that slows down, I will start releasing things out to places like Amazon and Google and, just all the like libraries, all the regular places that you can find my books. If you're not aware of what Kickstarter is, it's basically like a big campaign, like a Patreon, but instead of where Patreon is every month you chip in a little bit of money, this is like almost like a big creative fundraiser. So, I say, within 20 days, I would like to, get X number of pledges, which equate to X number of dollars in order to make this creative project happen. This is because it allows me to commission other artists. It allows me to hire vocal artists for audiobooks, so that way I don't have to even think about using AI to narrate my books. So there's a lot of benefits for it. It also means that the Kickstarter backers receive exclusive merchandise, things that I don't sell or provide anywhere else. Book boxes, gift bags, just all sorts of things. So it's a lot of fun. I have the pre-launch page up so you can follow it. All you have to do is click the notify me on launch. It'll ask for your email. It's no obligation. You don't have to do it. But if you want to kind of watch and hear how things go along and be one of the first to get a copy of An Uncanny Bargain, I would head over to Kickstarter and search for Belinda Kroll, me, or An Uncanny Bargain. And from there, you can follow the campaign. So, all that being said, I think I'm going to wrap up here. I'm sitting in my car and it's cold and rainy outside and my fingers are getting cold. So I'm going to go grab some tea. And I would love for you to do the same. I want you to go grab your favorite beverage of choice, grab your favorite blanket, find your favorite movie, and that's going to be your self-care tonight. As you're doing all that, I would love for you to think about the answer to this question. What is your favorite historical period and why? And what are some of your favorite books or movies set in that period? Because I'm always looking for new content to consume. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you guys. Love you. Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me today. You can find my signed and illustrated editions, bookish merch, and bullet journals for writers on my website, worderella.com. Regular editions of my fiction are available at libraries and all major retailers. Worderella Writes runs as a single annual season with roughly 10 episodes running from January to April each year. Connect with me, Belinda Kroll, through the reader poll in the show description, on Instagram as Worderella, on Patreon as Worderella, or my website, worderella.com. That's Cinderella, but with words. If you enjoyed this episode, support the podcast by sharing it with a friend, leaving a 5-star rating and review, and subscribing so you never miss an episode. And until next time, take care, and may all your mood reads be excellent.